Welcome back to the Common Application. Let's complete our application for Oregon State University, and this is going to work for either campus, either in Corvallis or in Bend. And before we log into our Common App account, I want to make a note that I am prepared to answer all of the questions, and I've prepared by making sure that I have the information or documents in front of me, including having a tab open for my It's a Plan College workbook, where I have information about things like residency, so information about myself that I don't have memorized but know is going to be necessary for this application. So I have that up ready to go, and let's log in. So the first page that's going to show up is my dashboard, and that has a list of all of the colleges and universities that I plan to apply to using the Common Application, and it has some information about where I'm at in the process. And so for Oregon State, I am still in progress, and I can click to show more details, which tells me some information about what I have completed and what I have not yet completed, including my questions. And so I'm going to click on the link to the first option for in progress. And just like before, I see on the left-hand side there's a menu of headers for various things that I'm going to need to complete as I go through this process. Now, this section is just about Oregon State University, and the questions that I answer here, the answers are only going to be sent to OSU. Some of these questions are going to feel very familiar or even identical to questions that I may be asked to answer for other colleges and universities in their supplemental section. And that's because these questions answers are only going to OSU. So even if I've answered them for another university, I still need to answer them for OSU specifically. So let's go ahead and get started. And we will note that there are some questions that have a red asterisk and some that don't. Just as before, the asterisk or star means that this is a required question and I can't move on or submit my application until I've completed it. If it doesn't have that star, it is optional and I may choose to answer that question or not. So my preferred start term, as you know, I'm planning to graduate in the spring of 2021, and then we'll want to enter the following fall. And it's asking me what kind of admission plan I want. So the difference between these, I have the option of 2 different early action deadlines or rolling admission. The primary difference here is that in early action, these are preferred deadlines, and when I submit my application a little bit earlier, they pay extra special attention to that and get me an answer earlier as well. And these are 2 different deadlines for that. And rolling admission is the situation in which I submit my application and they consider the application and get a decision to me. In all of these cases, I have the option to wait until the spring to make my final decision about where I will attend. I'm going to go with the rolling admission option, but you should choose the one that is right for you. This question, do I believe that I'm eligible for a fee waiver? So there is a fee to apply to OSU, but that fee could be waived or deferred, and so I have the option to provide information about whether or not I might be eligible for that fee waiver, and it gives me some choices about why I might be eligible, and none of these apply to me, so I'm going to go ahead and say no. Okay, this next section is about test optional, and we spoke about this a little bit when we were filling out the Common Application and made the decision not to self-report our scores, but this is giving me the opportunity to again confirm that I choose to not submit my test scores or to change my mind and say that I do want to submit my test scores. And I have not changed my mind. I still want to say no to providing test scores. And so I'm going to make that choice, but you can make a different choice, of course. They're wondering whether or not I'm going to pursue need-based financial aid. So in other words, do I plan to complete a FAFSA or an ORSA? And the answer is yes. And that just lets them know that they should be looking on the lookout for that, and click continue. Then we come to the academic section, and I have the option to choose which campus I'm interested in applying to, whether that's Corvallis or the Cascades campus in Bend, or if I'm interested in applying for both. And that's going to be my case, but you'll choose the one that is right for you. And then I want to choose what I'm interested in majoring in, and what I'm interested in majoring in at Corvallis or at Cascade. And the reason for that is that they have different programs, and so I need to make sure that I'm choosing an appropriate program at each campus. And so I'm going to take a look and make my decision here. And you'll notice that in some of these, there's both an opportunity for a Bachelor of Arts or a BA or a Bachelor of Science or a BS. And there's a couple of paragraphs up here to tell you about the difference and why you might choose one or the other. So if you are curious about that and want to learn more, you should read through that as you're making this decision here. So in Corvallis, I think that I am most interested in studying, let's go down a ways, and I'm most interested in studying sociology, so I'm going to choose that. And at OSU Cascade campus, I think I am most interested in studying liberal studies. And then I will continue on. This is a question about whether I'm interested in participating in a degree partnership program. This is not a required question, but I feel comfortable answering this, so I'm going to. And this is the opportunity to dual enroll at both OSU and a community college here in Oregon. And I am not going to do that, but if I was interested in that, I could click yes, and then it would give me the opportunity to tell which of the community colleges I'm planning to do that with. But for me, the answer is no, so I'm going to go ahead and say no and click continue. Now I have the activities section. Now it is true that we already provided some activities that we've participated in high school, and now the question is, of the activities that exist at OSU, what am I interested in participating in? This is not a required question, but I have no problem answering it, so I'm going to. I have up to 5 activities I can choose. I probably will just choose a couple. And so I'm going to come down and take a look at what's available here. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. And I think I'm probably interested in the student newspaper, and I'm also interested in health and wellness. So I'm going to leave that there and click continue. Now these are some questions about my contact with the university. And the first one is, have I previously applied to Oregon State? My answer is no, but let's see what happens if I were to click yes. They're going to ask me, when did I do that? And that's so that they can connect all of the applications that I've ever submitted to each other so that they have as much information about me as possible. But again, my answer is no, and so I don't have another pop-up to complete. And then this next question is about wanting to know if I give permission for them to use my cell phone to call me or text me. And a college would be interested in doing that to provide me with some reminders about deadlines, some interesting information happening on campus, a reminder to check my email for important information, or maybe letting me know that something is missing from my application, for example. So I definitely want them to be able to do that, and so I'm going to click yes, but you are not required to do that. You can say no. If you say yes, you're going to need to provide them with the cell phone number that you are open to them contacting you at. So I'll do that now and click continue. Now they want to know about my family, and we have already answered some questions about our family in the Common App, and OSU has a few more questions for us. One of which is, did either of my parents attend college? And they're interested in knowing if they did attend, whether or not they graduated. And if they graduated, did they graduate from OSU? Now for me, the answer is no, but you'll want to, of course, choose the one that's correct for you. And Then they want to know if I have any children of my own. And for me, the answer is no. But let's see what happens if we click yes. There is an additional question about how many children you have. For me, though, the answer is no. And so I'll click that and continue. They've got some additional questions for me about my experiences. Okay, now they have some additional questions for me about my experiences. And the first is whether or not English is my first language. For me, the answer is yes. You'll, of course, choose the answer that's correct for you. OSU has a particular program called Juntos, and they are wondering whether or not I've participated in that. I have not. And they're wondering if I've ever participated in a migrant education program or if my family is a migrant or seasonal farm working family. And for me, the answer is no. They're asking these questions because they may have some special programs that I would be eligible to participate in, and they'd like to connect me to them if that was true for me. Now there is a section to ask about gender and gender identity or sexual identity and orientation. These questions are optional. You certainly do not have to answer them if you don't want to, but you are welcome to answer them if you do. And these questions, or your responses to these questions, will be kept private and secure, but these will help the college to serve you as well as they can. So you'll have the option in gender and gender identity to choose from a variety of different options here. And for sexual identity or sexual orientation, you have, again, a variety of different options here. And you can choose the ones that are appropriate for you and click continue. Now this section is about residency, and residency when you're applying to college is about your tuition at a public university. So at a public university, there are in-state and out-of-state tuition charges. They're different whether you are a resident of the state that the university is in or not. And so if you are a resident of Oregon, you qualify for in-state tuition, or you might qualify for in-state tuition. And this section is about establishing that information. Now, there is a very important piece here about who should not complete this section. If you are not an Oregon resident, or importantly, if you are an Oregon resident but are applying for tuition equity, so you are an undocumented student applying for tuition equity, this is not a section that you should fill out. You should instead click no and go on to the next section. For tuition equity, you'll have another form that you'll need to fill out, and that will serve as your residency questions. Okay, but for those who are Oregon residents and are not applying for tuition equity, you can go ahead and click yes, I consider myself a resident of Oregon, and you notice that several other questions came up and we need to answer them in order to establish our residency so that we can access in-state tuition. Yes, I live in Oregon. Yes, I've been here for more than 12 months, and they want to know how long. Now, I was born in Oregon, and I've lived here ever since, and so it's from my date of birth. And so I will enter that here, and you'll want to enter whatever month you moved to Oregon. And to now. So I can put in today's date. I don't work, and so I didn't file income taxes, so I will say no. But if you did file taxes last year, you'll want to go ahead and say yes. And now they want to know some information about my parent. They did claim me as a dependent, and so then I'm going to move on, and they did provide at least half of my support, and Oregon is their legal state of residence. Now when I do that, a lot of information pops up about my parents. And this is information I probably don't have memorized, and that's where my It's a Plan College workbook comes in handy. The first question is, have they resided in Oregon for more than 12 months? Yes, that one I know they have, so I can answer that. Did they file Oregon income taxes? Yes, I know that as well. And they want to know how long have they lived here? So that I don't know, but I do have it written in my It's a Plan workbook where I have my applications here, and I can scroll down to residency information, and over here is the information about my parents, and it says that they moved into Oregon in May of 1998. And so I just need to make sure that I enter that here. And they still live here, so we can go ahead and keep that there and press continue. Now, these are questions about whether or not I'm interested in applying for the Honors College. And if that's something that you're interested in doing, you'll want to click yes here. You'll definitely want to have reviewed all of the minimum criteria. And when you click yes, there are a number of short answers that you'll need to complete. And so you should take a look at these and have them ready to go so you can copy and paste them and enter them into this section here. But I'm going to clear this because I've decided I'm not applying to the Honors College, so I can say no and continue. If you say yes, you'll want to enter your essays there. Now they're asking me about classes that I've taken in high school. First thing they want to know is, what is my unweighted GPA? So I have my transcript in front of me so that I have that information, and I know that I have a 3.2, and that's on a 4.0 scale. I have taken some honors in AP classes, and I have not taken IB classes. I have completed at least 2 years of Spanish by the time I graduate, but any foreign language would be fine, and I can go ahead and click continue. Now they want to know, if something were to happen to me when I'm on campus, who should they contact to let me know about that? I'm going to choose my parent or my mother and her name. I'm going to enter there, and she has a phone number. And her email address is the same as mine, so I know how to enter that. And that's in the United States, so I need to scroll all the way down to find it and click continue. Now, I'm going to read this carefully before I click yes, but this is giving me the opportunity to certify that everything I've said is true, it's complete, and I'm telling the truth in all of this, and that when I submit my application, I understand the terms of doing so. So I want to make sure that I read this, that I agree to that, click yes, and continue. Okay, and now we come to a section that is largely actually already filled out, because in the common application, there is the big common application of that we filled out before, where all the colleges want all the information, and then there are each of these individual sections. And in the individual sections, some things do transfer from one university to the other, and the FERPA release authorization and recommendation information is one of those. FERPA stands for the Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act. Now, this FERPA release authorization is essentially the permission that you're giving to allow your high school or any other colleges you've attended to share your academic record and recommendation letters with the colleges that you're applying to. And for the common application, you only need to fill this out one time for all of the applications, for all of the universities that you're applying to. And once you do it, so I've worked on all of these other individual applications, and when I did it for the first time, I don't have to do it again. But if you haven't done it yet, let me show you a little bit about what that looks like, so that you know what you'll be agreeing to the first time you do it. Once you've done it, you don't have to worry about it for any of your additional supplemental application. But let's take a look. The first time you come to it, you'll have the opportunity to view what that release authorization looks like, and you'll click on that and you'll see some instructions about what you're about to do. It's really important that you read these all the way through and that you understand what you've read, and if you have questions about it, you ask somebody so that you're making good decisions, because again, this is you granting permission to share information between your high school and the colleges that you're applying to, and vice versa. And there's an important section here, number 2, around if you are having recommendation letters being submitted, how confidential those are. Is that something that you want to be able to read in the future, or are you okay with not being able to read those in the future? And there's some good advice here about how to make a decision about that, but you'll need to make that decision and answer some questions about it on the next screen. So once you've read these and you understand them, you'll click continue. You'll check the box and click continue. But probably not that quickly. And you'll end up on this page where you have another acknowledgement to say that every school you've ever attended will now have permission to share that. So it's not just one of the schools you've attended, but all of them will have permission to share. This is the section where you get to decide about how much you see or don't see of your recommendation letters. And then there is an opportunity for you to say that you understand that when you make this decision, it is for all of the colleges that you're applying to. And as soon as you submit an application or somebody submits a letter on your behalf, you can no longer change your mind about this. So you want to make sure that the decision you're making is the one that you mean to make. You'll check this box, type your name, date it, then save and close, and you're set, and you never have to do that again. Then you have the opportunity to invite recommenders to participate in the application process with you. Some colleges will require a letter of recommendation, some will accept letters of recommendation. For OSU, the only person that they want to hear from is your counselor, and I have already entered the information about my counselor. But essentially, I clicked on a button to invite recommenders, and there was a counselor option here, and I could click on that, and it asked me for my counselor's name and email address. I entered that information, and it now shows up here, and I don't have to ever do that again. The advisor is the person who, if I have somebody who I'd like to be able to see my application, but they aren't going to submit anything on my behalf, but I just want them to be able to see it and provide me with some personal advice or assistance with that, I can choose to invite them. And this form looks a lot like what the counselor form looks like. It's asking for their email address, their title, their first and last name. And if I fill that out and click invite, then they will receive an email from Common App letting them know that that's happened. I don't have somebody like that, so I'm not going to choose it, but if you do, you can. And click continue. And now I'm done. I'm ready to submit, and I have 3 things left that I need to do. The first is to review my application. Second is to pay the fee if I have one, and then to submit it. So let's click review and submit and see what that looks like. So what's happening here is that the system is making a PDF of my application so that I can review it. And so this is a PDF of everything that I've provided about myself throughout this entire process. And I can either review it in this small screen, or I can click on the review PDF and it will pull up a much larger screen. I should absolutely make an effort to read through this and make sure that everything is correct and true and accurate. If I find something that is not, then I can click out and use the menu options to go to the place where I need to make some changes, and then come back and review again. Once I've done that, I get to the bottom and I can click to say that I have reviewed this and I want to continue on. And at the very beginning of my application process, I indicated that I was going to ask for an application fee waiver. If you did not do that same thing, then you would make your payment, and there would be a button to do that, and it would take you off, and you would use into a new system, a new website, and you would use your credit card or your parents' credit card to pay, and then be brought back here to do the next step. So I'm going to move on to the next step. And this is a page that is asking me to certify a number of different things. It's really important that I read each of these and click them when I have read them, understand them, and agree to them. So I'm going to read, understand, agree, and check the box. And I'm going to do that for each of these as I go down, sign my name, date it, and click submit. And once I do, I've applied to OSU, and so have you.